What is up, my friends? It's a brand new week. You are very welcome along to tonight's late night agenda. We have a lot to go through, and I have a little bit that I'd like to get off my chest, to be honest. I won't say I'm unhappy with the summer's transfer business, but for the first time this summer, I am starting to feel a little bit antsy about the lack of movement in certain areas. So I want to talk about that tonight. We'll, of course, try to figure out where we are in the hunt for a centre-back, what's going on with the situation with Alexander Isak, as the reporting today started to become a little bit more mixed than perhaps it was over the last few days. But most importantly, I want to try and get to the question of why are we here? And how do we find ourselves in this position where we are 5 days now out from the Premier League starting and seemingly, stumbling over the last bit of our business? So I want to just ask the question tonight, am I overreacting here a little bit, or are other people starting to have similar concerns? There's no denying we've had a brilliant start to the transfer window, but, we also have left ourselves short now in areas, and Premier League is starting very soon. And, I was thinking about yesterday's game, and look, there's a lot to digest from that game yesterday. Some of it not really important, some of it potentially very important. So there were a couple of things that stood out for me, and having slept on it, I feel comfortable that my takes on them aren't kind of off the cuff. So I want to talk about that tonight as well. But most importantly, I hope you're all having a good day, and thank you for joining me. Right, so let's get moving with some of the chat. Right, so Mr. John Henry, don't worry, we're getting Isak now, or don't think, excuse me, we're getting Isak now, just gay. So, again, I don't think anything has changed there from the perspective of Newcastle need to get a forward in. But I am starting to wonder, are we leaving ourselves a little bit too much to do, or are we spreading our options a little bit too thin? So the reason, I guess, my anxiety level in that regard has gone up a little bit today is you look around right now and you think, if the very worst came to it and we didn't get Isak, what are the options? And do we have time to make them happen? And the lack of real clear options is certainly a concern. Now, if it works out, you get Isak, brilliant, and that's still very much possible. But I'm starting to wonder about the contingencies and how late we leave it. Obviously, we've seen the fact now that Manchester City could make a move for Rodrigo as they look to sell Savinho to Spurs. So that's one potential stumbling block. The Barcola situation is one where we don't know how serious Liverpool's interest is, whether Barcola was open to it or whether there'd be any chance of a deal being struck. But what we do know is we are here 11th of August. And I'm going to run through the numbers, just sheer bodies-wise, that we've moved off, may move on, and have brought in. And whichever way I look at it, I don't feel we're ready to start the season yet. I don't want to overreact to these things. I don't want to, say we haven't done some good business in the market. We have. But I'm definitely starting to get a little bit concerned now, because what we did see yesterday was a team that wasn't ready. Now, you might be of the mindset that it's a friendly, it doesn't matter. That's fair enough, and I'm not going to push back against that. But it is also the last time these guys get to play together before the season starts proper. And, reading different views today, John Aldridge said he was kind of upset that Liverpool didn't play better or look to win that trophy yesterday or win that trophy yesterday. So what I want to talk about are the options that Arne has left himself, and are they enough going into the season? Because I don't think they are at this moment in time. So I'll go through it all tonight in as much detail as I can, and hopefully it'll make some sense. Right, this one from Adam. I'm still positive. I can't imagine we would sanction these sales without a genuine plan to make the squad deep enough to fight on all four fronts. Absolutely understandable and a very rational, fair comment. Let me just run through what gave me cause for concern today. So let me just open up my notes here in front of me. So I was just doing this earlier on, and I always find it more helpful when I write things down. It gives me a better, grasp of things. So I was talking about the incomings, right? Now, of course, there are going to be some minor incomings and outgoings that I don't mention here, but these are the important ones for me. So in this summer, we brought in Georgi Mamardashvili. Obviously a deal agreed last summer, but he became a Liverpool player this summer. So that was a straightforward situation. Brought in Ugo Ekitike, Jeremy Frimpong, Milos Kerkez, Florian Wirtz. So they are first team players that were brought in. Now, if we look at the potential outgoings and the confirmed outgoings, we've got Trent, who left. We've got Kelleher, who was sold. We've got Kwanzaa, who was sold. We've got Diaz, who was sold. We've got Darwin, who was sold. We've got Elliott, who's about to be sold. We've got Costas, who's probably going to be sold. We've got Chiesa, who's going to move back to Italy. And of course, we lost Diogo. So if you're looking at it even numerically, we have got rid of a lot more than we've brought in. And Arna speaking yesterday about being happy with the options at centre-back. I don't know how we can be. Because for one, we don't know what Canade's long-term situation is. On top of that, we've got Gomez, who wasn't available yesterday, and that's not going to fill fans with confidence that we can rely and trust on Joe to be available throughout the season. It just doesn't work. And we've seen yesterday, again, a situation in a game where we didn't look to the bench to change it, or we couldn't look to the bench to change it. You know, it's all very well and good saying we sold Diaz and that young Rio Ngamoa is a huge talent that will come through this year. But yesterday, didn't seem like the manager felt he was ready or capable to come on and change a game. And I asked myself this question. If Luis Diaz was on the bench yesterday and Cody Gakpo was playing the way he was, would we have seen Luis Diaz come on? And I think the answer is absolutely yes. He would have come on. So I don't believe Arna holds Rio in the same regard or readiness. So are we being fooled about the actual depth of that attack? We've brought in one striker and that's it. We've moved on Darwin. We've moved on Diaz. We're about to move on Chiesa. And obviously Diogo was something nobody planned for, but it happened. And we've brought in one new attacker. Now you might say to me, Craig, we've brought in Florian Wirtz. In my mind, Florian Wirtz was the upgrade for Harvey Elliott, who will move on and, you know, we always thought was going to move on. So I just don't see that we've done enough to give us the depth, even just from a numbers perspective yet. Now, granted, the window isn't shut. I get that. But one of the comments that Adam mentioned there a second ago was that, you know, we still have time and you don't believe we'd sell players if we didn't have people lined up. That's a perfectly rational thought process. But for me, I'm still asking, where's the Jarell Kwanzaa replacement? So there was one thing I read today that actually had me shouting at my computer. Let me read it out to you. It was from Ben Jacobs, and he said, Liverpool still expected to sign a centre-back between now and the end of the window. The feeling since May is it would always be a late window addition. Why? That's what I don't understand. Why is it a late window addition? Why is it the feeling that it was always going to be a late window addition? Why was the need for that? I don't understand. You know, we sold a player, and the more we have an opportunity for these guys to train with each other, play with each other, the better. And what we've seen yesterday was a team that, you know, whether they weren't taking it seriously or whatever, didn't look ready for the start of the season. Didn't look sharp and ready to go. There was still problems. There were still patterns of play and relationships that weren't as sharp as they could have been. And then I thought back over the summer and the 11s that we'd seen put out in the friendlies. And again, you'd say, have we given these guys as much opportunity as possible to get to know each other out there on the pitch and build these relationships before the season starts? And I have to say, no, I have concerns on that. Now, I'm not trying to be catastrophic here or throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I still can't understand the month or so that we sat on our hands and not looked to bring in a defender. I can't get my head around it. And I don't understand why Ben Jacobs would say, or why the club would brief, that the feeling since May is that will be a late window addition. I don't understand that. We've never replaced Joel Matip. We went through last season with a Jarell Kwanzaa that we knew very clearly Arna didn't trust to give minutes to. And he's been sold. So now we have two centre-backs. Gomez wasn't available yesterday. So we have two senior centre-backs. And we're supposed to remember what the goal was for the summer. We were all told that the goal was that Liverpool could have a squad that could challenge and really push on every major competition that we were in. I don't think that depth is there at all yet. I think even if we bring in a centre-back now and a forward, I would argue you're still talking about very questionable depth in numbers. Now, the quality of players we brought in are really good. You know, Ugo Ekitike looks a great player. Florian Wirtz. I have no questions about the recruitment in that regard. I just really feel like we're just leaving ourselves a bit too much to do and an unnecessary risk to some extent. That's where I'm at with it. But I just wanted to say that tonight before we started, because I'm not panicking. I'm not trying to say, shit, we're not going to win anything. But I just question, are we giving ourselves the best chance to really get going? Because, yeah, the window might not close till September the 1st, but the league starts next Friday. Michael, thank you, mate. Appreciate you. Corbin said, fed up the Isak saga, just get a centre-back and a winger. I can't say I'm fed up with the Isak saga, because I've always felt it was going to be one that dragged on a little bit. But where I am a little bit worried is, let's say the worst came to the worst and Newcastle couldn't get a replacement. I'm struggling to look around to think who else we might bring in at this point, because the shorter it gets in the window, obviously the more difficult it is for other clubs to then find a replacement, or for you to be able to go in and get another player. You know, you seem desperate at the end, and we just simply cannot go into this season with the amount of bodies we have in attack at the minute. There's just nowhere near enough. Colin said, it's the Emperor's New Clothes by the owners. Remember when Klopp used to say, only line is, we are strong. Well, net spend wise, we're at about, it depends who you look at for this, somewhere between 90 and 104 million in net spend. So certainly we've done good business bringing in money, but we want to see that money invested into the squad. And again, these guys won't have another opportunity to play together before Bournemouth. That was the last routine, or the last what would you call it, a bit of training, or the last chance for these guys to form these relationships in a competitive game of football before they step out on the pitch. And I don't think any Liverpool fan left Wembley yesterday or watched that game and thought, yeah, we're ready to go, firing on all cylinders, roll on next Friday. I certainly didn't. You know, I left that game with questions about gaps in the defence, questions about the effort that was put in out there, and questions about the temperament of some of the lads in it. So, yeah, certainly just for the first time this summer, feel a little bit of anxiety on it. Cal said, bids coming for Gay and Isak after Friday's game. So this is what I really don't understand. Why the need to wait? It's like, especially in the centre-back situation, that really baffles me. I don't understand the need. We need a centre-back. Simple as that. Go get one. This is what the window was for. There's nothing to say we have to wait till the end of the window. Like I said, we sold Jarell Kwanzaa quite a while ago now. And Jarell Kwanzaa kind of was filling a space that we never really covered for Joel Matip when he left either. So I just don't like the depth. And I think we're an injury or so away from a big headache. You know, we spoke last season many times throughout the season about, were we lucky that we didn't have an injury to Ryan Gravenberch? Were we lucky that we didn't have a big injury to Virgil? And the thought process was that would be addressed this summer, that we would go out and have two great players in every position. Well, just for a bit of fun, if you get a chance, jot down the depth chart for Liverpool and be realistic about it. I don't think that we have addressed what we needed to address. I don't think we've done enough business for the bodies that we've moved on. I'd love to know why Slot didn't bring Doak and Rio on with their pace to take on tired legs. Would have offered more than Salah and a tired Gakpo. So it's a really good point, and I mentioned it a few moments ago. For me, it was very telling, because you can sell us the vision of Rio being the next Diaz or competing with Cody Gakpo, but we're not seeing that lived out in real world times. So if Rio isn't quite ready to be a bona fide challenger, well then I think it's fair to say, stop trying to say that he is and go into the market and find one. Because we've only brought in one forward. That's it. Ugo Ekitike, one. And we've promoted Rio, and we've potentially got rid of, well, we've lost Diogo, we've got rid of Darwin, we've got rid of Diaz, and we're going to get rid of Chiesa. The math don't math in that regard. That's not giving us a squad to compete on all competitions. That's not giving us the depth to be able to rotate and play 2 games a week and challenge. So, granted, the window ain't shut yet. But my big question tonight is, why are we hanging around? We were so good so quickly at the start of the window. And now we just seem to be, I don't know, waiting for I don't know what. Yes, the Isak situation, that one I do understand. But it's a risky strategy as well, because where are the alternatives at this point if the worst came to the worst? Mr. Bomb Guy said, do you feel there will be a conclusion on Isak at the end of the week? I still think nothing has really changed there. Like, if Newcastle get a replacement, I really feel we sign Isak. I don't think much has really changed in that regard. The reporting has been a bit mixed on it today, but still think it'll be the same outcome. But let's look at the alternatives, right? So we've been told Barcola, let's say, from the likes of Fabrizio Romano. Barcola is somebody that Liverpool have there as a potential one. But PSG have a contract waiting to give him. The line seems to be from Paris that they don't want to sell him. He doesn't want to move. So what's the point in that? Unless we have a clear indication that that's bluff and he's ready to go, at what point do you wait? And Rodrigo could end up at Manchester City now. Savinho looks like he's off the Spurs, and that'll free up space in their squad, and he could go to Manchester City. So that's another potential option off the table. And just for the first time all summer, I'm starting to get a little bit antsy about just the numbers of the amount of players we haven't brought in. I fear it's Isak, nothing, and we wait, said Elvis Presley. If it's Isak or nothing, it's a very, very, very risky strategy, because we are not ready to go into the season numbers-wise in attack. We just aren't. We basically have one left winger, if Rio isn't a realistic challenger, one right winger, and one striker. So numerically, we've left ourselves worse off so far than we were last year. It isn't adding up to me in my mind. And again, sorry if this feels... I certainly don't mean this to be catastrophic or a rant or anything. I'm just posing what I feel are justified questions at this point of the window. I'm not saying there mightn't be resolutions to it, but, you know, it's hard sometimes when you think, you know, that the more time a manager has to work with a player when they come in, the better that's going to be. You hear managers speaking about it all the time. They'd like as much time as possible on the training ground. And with the likes of Florian Wirtz and the boys that we've brought in, to be fair, Arna's had, apart from Hugo, Arna's had most of the summer. But did the performance that you've seen in the Community Shield look like a group of players in defence who were ready, who had been drilled enough, who had played together enough in pre-season? Because we've spoken lots of times about the fact that we haven't put out our strongest back four really at all in pre-season. But that's the only opportunity that these guys get to play together. And there's a big difference between playing and training. So, you know, we've no more opportunities now to work things out. The league starts on Friday. Aaron said, at this point, I couldn't care about Isak. Use that money on Gay, Leone, a proper backup striker and a winger. We're too top-heavy for 4 competitions. We're not even top-heavy though, mate. That would be my argument tonight. We're not really heavy anywhere. Maybe midfield, you could say, but in an attacking midfield sense, maybe. But I certainly don't feel we're top-heavy in attack, Aaron, because, you know, just look at the numbers. Who are the options that we have? And on the Isak thing, it's a weird one, right? Because I'd love Isak, and I hope we get him. But it's always felt like that was supposed to be the pinnacle, the cherry on the top. But we need to do the basic stuff as well, which is make sure that Arna has enough bodies in each position. I really, really, really don't feel we have that now. I feel like we're an injury or two away still from a problem. Like, we're going into the season that starts on Friday, and none of us know who Gravenberch's backup is yet. Nobody. Arna hasn't spoken about it that I'm aware of. We haven't really seen somebody come in pre-season to play the role in that way. So if Gravenberch picked up an injury next week, well, are we going to see Curtis Jones shoehorned into that position that he just can't play well enough? You know, these are questions that I think are valid ones. Endo can't play the role, the same as Gravenberch. He is a DM, but he cannot play the position in the way that we play it. So if Endo comes in to play in DM, something has to give somewhere else on the pitch, because we won't be as press resistant in the position. Endo can't break lines in the same way as Gravenberch, and, you know, he is a defensive midfielder, but he's not a Ryan Gravenberch. So we're changing something. And the whole point was supposed to be that we're able to interchange these jigsaw pieces, for want of a better phrase, and that the standards or the way we play wouldn't drop off. Deutscher Kopite said, definitely not done enough in this window. If we don't bring in another striker, centre-back and a natural number 6, we could be in for a tough season. Just my opinion. So let's ask that. So do you think we've done enough in this window so far? Okay. So do you think we've done enough in the window? Now, I know some of this sounds weird, right? Because we're talking about having broken the British transfer record. And I certainly don't mean to sound ungrateful for the transfer business that we have done. Because all the players that we've brought in, I genuinely do feel are upgrades on what we had. So I don't mean to come across that way at all. But I still don't see the depth there to be able to compete in 4 competitions and maybe be able to suck up an injury or Mohamed Salah going to the AFCON. So if Frimpong is either a right back or a cover for Salah, the idea of him being some potential to do both feels like we're cheaped out to some extent, if you get me. Bishy said lost numbers but brought in quality. Yeah, definitely. No arguing, mate, about the quality, but I just don't think there's enough. You know, numbers are important as well. Like, I can't push back about what you've said. We've upgraded at left back. We've made a necessity change at right back. We've upgraded with Ugo to the centre. We've upgraded on, let's say, Elliott with Florian Wirtz. No question about any of that, but still feel like they're numerically we're short. Kyle said, do you think Sky are correct that Isak stays? So I think you're talking about the Keith Downey thing. So let me just give context to the chat. Is it this one? Yeah. So Keith Downey said, it feels like the options for Newcastle are very thin on the ground after they missed out on Benjamin Sesko. So I think as the days go on, it's becoming increasingly likely that Isak remains a Newcastle player this window. So let's look at that as a statement. Well, we've always known that if Newcastle don't get a replacement for Isak, the odds of us signing him are probably slim to none. So I don't think many of us can argue about that one. But that's been out of our control. But the real question here, I guess, is there a plan B? And what is the plan B? And will the plan B be ready to go for the start of the season? Or will they be able to come in and start playing straight away? I don't know the answers to that. And I also don't know who the hell the plan Bs are at this point because, you know, window's ticking along. Other teams are doing more business. Options are starting to become a little bit more thin on the ground. Desperation becomes a bit clearer as the window comes to an end. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think anything has changed with Isak, but we can't control what Newcastle do. You know, if Newcastle can't bring in a striker, we can't do anything to change that. So we have to have a ready-to-go plan that I'm starting to wonder if we do. Especially at centre-back. That one I'm absolutely astonished at. It just, like, I cannot disagree more with what Ben Jacobs said. I mean, I know Ben Jacobs is only saying what he's briefed, and this certainly isn't a dig at him. But to read, Liverpool expect to sign a centre-back, but it was always going to be a late window addition. That doesn't make any sense to me. Why? Is it to save a few quid on Mark Gay? If you know who your target is, or you don't. And if you sold Kwanzaa without knowing who the target is, that's a bigger problem. So that's a confusion that I have as a fan that, you know, if you sell somebody, you're supposed to know you've got somebody ready to go or, you know, who your target is. Why are we waiting around? You know, because let's say you wait until the end, you went for Gay and Palace just didn't want the number. Well, then we're absolutely screwed there. And we cannot go through the season with Virgil van Dijk, an injury-prone Joe Gomez, and a Canada who still hasn't signed a new deal, and we don't know where his head's at. That's not clever, in my opinion. He goes on to say, Richard Hughes has been shortlisting an 18 to 22-year-old profiles in keeping with the club's historical targets, including Levi Colwill and Lenny Yoro. Former wasn't attainable, so Liverpool never bid. See, that's absolute horseshit. Like this, again, briefing or speaking publicly to say Lenny Yoro wasn't available is absolute horseshit. Lenny Yoro, we were told we would bid for if Real Madrid didn't bid. They didn't, and we shit the bed and let United sign him. Again, let's talk about what were the facts at the time there, and we were told if Real Madrid walk away, Liverpool would make a move. And then we were told, well, no, it's too expensive. So, these targets or historical targets are there, but we didn't do anything to get them. And I struggle to see a world where an 18-year-old, even a very talented 18-year-old like Giovanni Leone, is ready to play half a season if needs be in the Champions League and the Premier League for Liverpool. I just don't think that's right. Whereas you've got Mark Gay, who's been there all summer with nobody bidding for him. And we've done what? Twiddle our fucking thumbs? The dude would definitely want to come and play for Liverpool. And even at the steep valuation, let's say 40 million, it's still a relatively good price for a centre-back that would be ready for the here and now. It truly astonishes me. He goes on to say Parma's Giovanni Leone is a strong target under consideration. If Liverpool pivot to Mark Gay instead, it's a slight exception to the other age profiles looked at. It'll be because the Palace defender is a market opportunity too good to turn down. 40 million price would need to drop further, coupled with Gay being prepared to join in a World Cup year. Why? That's, again, bullshit. Why would we need to wait? Why would the price need to come down? Start the fucking conversation. Be proactive. This sitting around trying to save 5 million shit is great until it isn't. And now it's at a point where we're just intentionally leaving the manager a lot to do. Don't get it. Here's what I would do, right? Here's what I would suggest. Buy Leone, loan him back to Parma or somebody for a year in Italy, and buy Mark Gay for the here and now. That would then take the pressure off trying to figure out what the fuck is going to happen with Ibrahima Konate, because we still don't know the resolution there. And if Konate then decided he wasn't signing a new deal and he's going to Madrid in a year, well, you've already brought in Mark Gay and you've tied up young Giovanni Leone for the future. And we can definitely afford to do that. So it's not a money thing. We can 100% afford to do that. Remember, we were told we can spend up to 300 million net spend and not have PSR issues. Well, we're at about 100 now. So, and we still have to sell Elliott. So why not do that and tick both boxes? Have that youngster ready for the future. Let him get valuable experience over in Italy where he's comfortable. Why dicking about? IFI Mustard, if we hadn't let those leave, then it's a great season. We haven't replaced them so far. It's not good. Look, for me, Leone, I've no doubt he's a huge talent, but you can mitigate some of our risk by buying him now for what, £35 million and loaning him for another year back to Italy. If that went wrong and we were up shit creek, maybe have a cancellation clause in it that you could bring him back in. But it takes away the risk with Konate and it allows us to still bring in Mark Gay. So, what was a very good start to the window with lots of optimism, again has us talking about edginess and nervousness at the end of it. And it's all avoidable in my opinion. Deutscher Copboy said, definitely not done enough in this window. If we don't bring another striker, centre-back, a natural number 6, we could be in for a tough window. Yvonne said, hi Craig, why don't we sign Isak in January? Because we need him now. That's half a season. We shouldn't be in a position where we're having to go into the season totally understaffed in attack. And, bringing him in January, it's not really going to change anything. So I just, it's not like Newcastle, he's running down his contract. He's got 3 years to go on his deal, so 2.5 years to go. It's not really going to change the position. Yeah. Right. Anyway, let's keep going. Liam said, "New Isak would take a while. Feel the same about Gay. Palace will get spooked late window. Will accept the lower offer due to him not signing a new contract. I think that's what we're waiting for. I just don't understand the need to wait, though. You know, start the bidding at 35 and see where we end up. I don't get it. Like, I don't see the need to wait, especially when, after yesterday, I certainly don't feel reassured that we're ready to go in the centre of the fence because it didn't look great yesterday. So I feel like, the best defender out on that pitch that I seen yesterday was in a Crystal Palace jersey. If we're being really honest about the performances, Mark Gay was the standout centre-back on that pitch. And again, that was one game, fair enough, but there's no doubts around him. You know what you're getting. Premier League quality, homegrown, good age profile for, let's be honest, a pretty fair price. This one from DCM said, "Getting a joke now this. Need at least one centre-back, but two really before anything else. Can't seem to keep a clean sheet and it's worrying. Hope you're well." I'm good, my man. I'm good. You said a month left, no need to worry. I respect where you're coming from, but the season kicks off on Friday. And we can't not think they're important weeks in between now and the time it ends. And there isn't a month to go, mate. There's 3 weeks to go in the window, just over 3. So I get where you're coming from, but there's also no need to drag it out. Isak, yes, that's a situation that is somewhat out of our control, definitely. But we can be more proactive at centre-back, but for some reason we're choosing not to be. And if it's to save 5 to 10 million quid on Gay, are we that hard up that we couldn't give the manager the tools that he needs earlier and more time to work with them? Let's throw another argument out there. The money that you might save for Mark Gay, well, if you have a few better Champions League performances, let's say, with stronger depth, maybe a couple more wins makes up that difference. Alejandro said, "Sadly, there's no way we get 2 centre-backs unless we lose Joe Gomez. Not enough game time. Otherwise, we would have replaced Matip." Yeah, look, it's fair. I really didn't expect 2 centre-backs this summer. My thought process was probably that Nallo may become the 5th at a push. But we definitely need 4. And 4 ready to go. And the season starts on Friday. Chancelita, Mohada, how are we? Hi Craig, concerned with our performances against lesser teams in knockout stages, worried Slot doesn't have the firepower to motivate the lads. Hard to know what way to think about yesterday's game. Really, it is. It's difficult to know how. There's a few variables. Obviously still the Diogo situation and how that's playing on the players' minds. That's one. Again, the amount of time these guys have played together hasn't been huge this summer. There was somebody put in a stat before I started. I don't have a way to verify this or not, but it was something like we've had 1 or 0 clean sheets in the last 12 we've played, something like that. That's concerning. It is. That's concerning because we gave up some silly goals, especially in that game yesterday. Both of those goals were entirely avoidable. And, nothing winds me up more than feeling like there's no pressure on certain players. So I understand it's very difficult to put pressure on a Virgil van Dijk or to put pressure on a Mohamed Salah. But it's even worse if one of those players aren't performing and you know that the manager can't or won't make a change to sub out the underperforming player in a game. Cecily, excuse me, said, as Newcastle United can't see where we're getting Isak replacement from. Visa will come eventually. The club aren't stalling. We're just in a difficult situation. So I understand that. Excuse me, Cecily, and that's why this is a dangerous game for us, because we don't seem to have plan Bs and Cs here. And we need to, because we just don't have the numbers anymore in attack because of the amount we've let go, and obviously Diogo's passing. So we've brought in one new forward, and we could lose four. And yes, Rio being giving a starting berth or a first team opportunity, that's fair enough if it's sincere. But again, he wasn't looked at yesterday when we were in need. He wasn't given the chance to come on. So you have to think, does the manager really view him as a ready for the here and now? And if he doesn't, then again, we've got problems. Our starters are good enough. We'd only be buying backups. But that's been the whole point of the window, dude. I don't think you're grasping what the point of this summer was. Remember, go back and listen to the interviews from the manager and others. The point was that we won't have drop-offs. There won't be another situation like we had when we went to play against Plymouth Argyle, as an example. The plan here was that shit doesn't happen again. That Liverpool have options in every position, and the drop-off won't be huge when we make them. So we need to have 20 to 22 top-notch players. This one from Just Mick LFC said, the whole notion of waiting for encouragement is absolutely pathetic. Either bid or move on. 4 days to go and short at the back and up top. Yeah, it is, mate. It is. I can't argue about the pathetic comment. It feels really silly at this point. Especially when you're still sanctioning these sales. If we were sitting here now, and whether I agreed with this or not, but if we're sitting here now and Darwin is still around, at least you can go, right, there's an option. Might not be happy with it, but it's an option. But we haven't. We've got rid of players and are continuing to do it, but we're not beefing up the squad enough. And again, like I said, no qualms about the players that were brought in. All really great signings who I'm delighted to have with the club. But, the math has to math as well, and the bodies have to be there. Did Rio not come on because of the penalty takers? Not sure, mate, not sure. Would I like to see Verge step up for a penalty, actually? I was only thinking about that. Yeah, I can't say. Maybe Arna might let us know at some point on that one. Andrew Nichols said, I've said before, we do not have enough strength in depth in the squad despite a good transfer window. And I would get to the point where I'm starting to agree with that, mate. I was trying to be, and I'm trying to be patient. I'm not blessed with patience as a human being, but I've tried to understand that, yes, there was a lot of change, but again, we prepared for this for a whole year. And if you're selling players, surely you've got to have replacements ready. Not replacing players you move on is just madness for a squad that was already stretched thin for a quality that the manager trusted last season. Where are we? This one from Wesley. So I just saw that Gay's injury was just cramps. Good. Good news on that one, mate. Yeah, I was worried when he went down holding his leg yesterday. I was thinking, oh God, no. Just no, please not an injury here. That would really be worrying. Right, so we asked, do you think we've done enough in this window? Almost at 2,500 votes. So we'll let it go a little bit longer, and let me read some more comments. LFC 2005 said, this transfer window has gone downhill gradually. Keep selling and adding no replacements. Adam Byrne said, our starting 11 is good. It's bench options. Yeah. Look, no argument there, mate. Like if you look at it, let's just even throw out a starting 11 there: Allison, Frimpong, Kanade, Virgil, Kirkes, Gravenberch, Wirtz, Soboslai, um, Salah, Ekatike, Gakpo. Certainly a good 11. And there are some options there on the bench, but just not enough. And certainly carrying an injury or two would certainly be light as well, in my opinion. Um, yeah. So definitely get where you're coming from. And can't really argue about the depth being, but the depth is the key to the window. You know, the depth is what keeps you going over a whole season. Which backups do you consider top notch? So I guess it depends on what we're considering as an 11. So let me run my 11 again, and then we'll talk about the backup. So again, I'm not saying this is the 11; it's just an 11. So Allison, Frimpong, Kanade, Virgil, Kirkes, Gravenberch, Soboslai, Wirtz, Salah, Ekatike, Gakpo. So then we're looking at the bench. You have McAllister, really good option. Jones, good option. Um, Gomez, good option, but can you rely on him in the season? Let's be honest, probably not. Moving around, then you're starting to get light. Up top, very light. A young prospect in Rio, and am I missing anybody? I can't really think of another option in attack that we'd have. Chiesa's going to go, so that won't be an option. So very light there. Right wing. Well, are we shoehorning our right back as a right winger as well? So yeah, McAllister, Jones, young Rio. Doak is not good enough. So, we're throwing names out there, but they're not good enough names. And they're names that the manager's not going to use. Bradley, of course. Bradley is one I've forgotten about. But again, unfortunately with Conor Bradley, we've still seen a potential to have some injury concerns. So there just isn't enough quality there. So who do we start rotating? Who do we rest up? Who's the options up front? Just not enough. Like Ben Doak isn't being utilised, isn't being used, and is going to be sold. So, yeah. I can think of right wing, centre forward, maybe left wing, defensive midfield. 4 positions I can think of off the top of my head that I'd have questions about depth. This one from Mohammed said, I wish that we could just buy players and not have to sell to buy because it leaves us short of players. So the idea and the theory, Mohammed, of sell to buy and replacing is great if you get like for likes and you get the same numbers. But we've ran through what we've done this summer and what we're about to lose, and we're again lessening the amount of bodies there. So yeah, you're right, mate. I've no problem with trying to balance up the books somewhat as well. Like none whatsoever. Nothing wrong with spending 500, bringing in 300 million. It's still good business, but we've got 2 huge question marks with 5 days to go till the season starts. Where's somebody else? Craig Gascoigne said, all this slagging off of Newcastle not selling Isak. But Craig, I've never once, and don't know anybody in our community who slagged off Newcastle for not selling Isak. So respectfully, mate, I think you're inventing a scenario that doesn't exist. We've slagged off Newcastle for the way they've dealt with the situation, but nobody's ever slagged them off for not selling him, because we've always understood, why would you sell a player without having a replacement? We're actually moaning about having done just that. Selling players like Darwin, Diaz, and not having a replacement. Selling player like Kwanzaa and not having a replacement. So none of us that I'm aware of have slagged Newcastle for not selling Isak. We've flagged them for the state of the way they've gone around their window and not brought players in. And the way that maybe they've dealt with the situation. But certainly I don't remember anybody saying Newcastle should just sell us Isak and tough shit if they don't have a centre forward. Eddie said, you're not panicking, you're being realistic. I know I have a tendency to get worked up on occasion, Eddie. But like I said, I was thinking this yesterday after the game, and I tried to sleep on it and see how I felt today when I woke up and look back at the game and see if I still felt the same way. And I do. Unfortunately, I do still have concerns that we aren't ready for the season yet. And the performance yesterday just adds to that, because that didn't look like a team that was firing on all cylinders and maybe got a little bit lucky on an occasion. We looked like a team that Palace knew quickly how to get in behind, and a team that again couldn't hold a lead twice, that looked vulnerable defensive, and they're the centre-back pairing that will be playing for the season. So there's still questions there that I think deservedly are being asked by some people. Stargirl said, even though we won the Prem, we did run out of steam. We had massive difficulties the year before when our squad was thin and we had lots of injuries. Yeah, you're right. You know, we won the league at a canter and had a very meh end to the campaign. Look, we all kind of shrugged our shoulders a little bit and said, well, look, league's won, yada, yada. But it's very difficult to just mentally switch these things on and off as well and get back to full relentlessness at the flick of a switch. What's this one? So, bit of news here. So, Romano has said something that Plettenberg has said googly eyes and tick emoji too. So, tick. Said, my prediction is that Liverpool will sign Giovanni Leone from Parma. Liverpool are really considering internally to get him. So, good. That's certainly good news. Double down with Mark Gay and we're good to go. Because I've got to say, bringing in an 18-year-old centre-back, he'd want to be pretty fucking good to be ready to play in the Premier League at 18, even if he is as good as Leone apparently is. You know, if Canade or Virgil had an injury, is this guy good to go? Would he be able to play in the Premier League? If the answer to that is yes, then cool. I'm being sincere in saying I don't know enough about the kid. You know, I've seen Mark Gay enough, know he's Premier League ready. So I'd feel very comfortable with him. But if you guys or the manager really feels that Leone could come in and do it, then cool. That would be a great addition, and let's go get him done. Right, let me run through some more news. I know I've got some super chats that I have to get through as well. I haven't forgotten them, but of course I want to try and keep the news moving along as well. Chris Bascom said most reassuring was the fact that scouting reports suggested Ekitike is the footballing twin of Alexander Isak. Carried weight. He said the height, frame, languidly, deceptive sprinting power, and eye for goal, suggesting that in the absence of a highly prized Newcastle goal scorer, Liverpool move for the next best option. It begs the question as to whether the ongoing pursuit of Isak for a whopping fee north of 110 million is as urgent as it was before Ekitike's unveiling. Judgment on that needs to be reserved. The first few Premier League games are going to provide greater insight. That makes me nervous though as well. You know, because we're rolling the dice at the start of the season to see. You know, I was really impressed with what I'd seen from Ugo Ekitike. Like, really, really impressed. I thought that was a very, very good 70 minutes from him. And he could be the number 9, no problem. But then you need to go get wingers in and other forwards. So either way, if Ekitike is going to be the central player, no probs. But we still need to get more players in. We still need another 2 attackers. So I don't know who this person is. Is moaning and groaning, Craig. I love the videos, but you're not the voice of Liverpool fans. Respectfully, I never said I was, mate. You know, I didn't. And what would you like me to do? Applaud the fact that we're standing still? Look, I get it. People are trying to bait me, and I'm not going to be biting on it tonight. But I never claimed to be the voice of Liverpool fans, mate. I happen to be the most watched. I happen to have a platform, but I'm not trying to say my way is the right way. I'm here to have a conversation. and I've been listening to the feedback from you guys. I've been trying to have my say on it, but ultimately, your opinion doesn't validate me in my mind. So, respectfully, if you've nothing positive to add to the conversation, best to just move on. And I think the fact that 86% of 3,000 people that think we haven't done enough in the window, I think my sentiment tonight certainly seems to be right on point with the Liverpool fan base, mate. So, I'll let me trust my judgment because I'm pretty confident I know what I'm talking about. And we asked, do you think Liverpool have done enough in this window? And 86% of people say no. So I guess 86% of people are moaners, right? But they're not the voice of the Liverpool fan base either. It doesn't matter that they're all fans and I'm fans. Apparently the vast majority, their opinions don't matter. Where are we? Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you. Gio said, I think we still need both, even though he's young, or Rio's young. Anthony said, Craig, sod the critics. I think you're fantastic. No, look, I'm going to try my best to continue to ignore the arseholes because I thought long and hard about this last night because I really, really wasn't feeling good after yesterday's watch-alongs and the streams. I felt terrible. So I had a good long chat with my missus about it, and it's easy for people in the chat to say, don't bite on it. And technically it's right, but put yourself in my position and ask yourself why the standard should be that I have to accept negativity and horrible abuse. The standard, in my humble opinion, should be that we as a society, as human beings, don't put up with the shit and call out the arseholes who add nothing to the conversation, nothing to the community, nothing of any positive impact whatsoever. Their only trolling goal is to be an asshole. So it's easy for you to say, ignore them, but you're not getting emails threatening your family. You're not getting abused day after day. So again, respectfully, it's easy to say ignore them when it isn't you on the end of it over and over again. I'm trying my best, but I am a human being. And you can't have an interactive show without sometimes picking or reading a comment that isn't a little bit negative or that might not push a button. If I was to stop that, then I have to stop the interactive nature of the show entirely, and then they win. So, please be a little bit more mindful of our side of this and, what I have to put up with as well. This one from Barl Badai. Big love, Craig. You're the best. Any Elliot Chiesa news? Can't sell anymore without recruiting, surely. Squad size is becoming on par with Arsenal. Elliot, it looks like, certainly in the back end, there's been plenty of conversations about Leipzig. I think there's been a couple of reports today to say 4-year deals being agreed in principle there between Harvey Elliott and Leipzig, but not seeing anything to suggest a deal between the clubs has moved along. And what was the other one you asked me? Chiesa. Honestly, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. It's been a weird one all summer. It's like we've been told we're waiting for Italian clubs to do some business and stuff all summer, but so far I'm not aware of an offer having come in for Chiesa from Liverpool, and this feels like we've made a mistake in a signing that we can't seem to get rid of at this point, and clearly who the club don't want around because wasn't brought on the pre-season tour or anything. It is a weird one. LLJ said, if I was you and somebody said that stuff about my family, I'd find out who they are and deal with them. Exactly. It's not easy. It's not easy. And, I don't want to shut myself off and not be interactive and chat with you guys because I really, really get a lot of benefit and positivity from chatting with you all. But I'm not going to let the arseholes win. And I want you guys to stand up for yourselves as well, to say, no, this isn't tolerated here. This isn't what we want in our community, because I love chatting with you. You're all amazing. But like I said, I'm only human as well, and I've got to look out for myself at times. Harry said, hey Craig, hope you're well. Outside perspective, I've always thought that Wirtz will play in your front three. I don't know what your midfield options are like. Also, Parish said today that they need to sell Gay if he doesn't sign. I've always looked at Wirtz as an Elliott upgrade. Again, nobody's ever said that out loud. This has just been the way I've thought of it in my mind. So I thought, right, Harvey's probably going to move on. We bring in Wirtz, that's an upgrade, and it's also going to put real competition for places there between himself, Jones, Szoboszlai. I've always thought McAllister may be a little bit different in that he can play a bit deeper if needs be. So I've never really thought of Wirtz as an attacking signing in that sense. But maybe, Harry, that's just me thinking about it wrong. And maybe I've had the wrong view on that. I don't know what this means, Khaled. So you tagged me and you said every time a player plays bad, they always start saying we have to sell him. Who's they? I don't know what you're saying. If you're trying to say that on the channel we say a player's bad after selling them, sell them. Show me once. Apart from Darwin, show me where I've said sell anybody. You know, I angrily said once about Mo and I put my hands up for that one, but critiquing a player's performance is kind of what we're supposed to do, dude. And again, saying something isn't good enough when it hasn't been good enough, it isn't hate, it's an opinion. And it's a valid opinion. You know, other words, what's the point? We're all supposed to just clap along to everything being brilliant. You know, we're supposed to have high standards and we're supposed to be able to say when somebody hasn't been playing good enough. And if you've seen some of the comments during the games, when we're like 0-0 after 40 minutes and people are saying give up the season, we're all shit, sell everyone, fuck you, fuck this, everyone's terrible. You know, I'd say I'm pretty measured, mate, compared to some of the reactions that I see on a day-to-day basis. Sorry, where was I at? Let's talk Barcola for a second. So, Fabrizio Romano said, Paris Saint-Germain are expecting Bradley Barcola to sign a huge new contract after the window closes. Everybody at the club wants him to stay and insists he's not for sale despite Liverpool's interest. This confuses me a little bit, right? If a player doesn't want to leave a team and a team don't want to sell the player, why are we even talking about him on our list? Especially when the number one target on that list is in a position where we're struggling to get him out of Newcastle. Should the next option not be somebody who we could instantly go and get without too much resistance? That's why I've always been a little bit sceptical of the Bradley Barcola links, because something doesn't add up. You know, if he doesn't want to leave and PSG don't want to sell him, then why are we even talking about him? You know, at least with Isak, we know, okay, Newcastle might not want to sell him, but he wants to come to Liverpool. Lolly, how are you, dude? Said, hey Craig, forget Isak, keep Chiesa, take the money, buy 2 players we need for the money. We're better off then. So at this point, I'm just worried, you know, that who the targets might be. So, you know, let's play a game, I guess, for a minute. If you were Liverpool right now and you came to the belief that Isak might be too risky, you might be waiting too long and it might be too risky, what would you do right now? What would you do if you were Liverpool? Like, who are these targets? Because I'm starting to look around and it feels a little bit thin on the ground. Obviously, Malik Fofana is a name that will still be out there. Rodrigo is there, but also interest is starting to ramp up now from the likes of City, who are freeing up a space in their squad. Barcola is a name that's been mentioned but doesn't seem to want to move around. Ademola Lookman's nowhere near good enough. Jean-Philippe Mateta's nowhere near good enough. So these are all names that, why sell Diaz if we're going to bring in somebody like fucking Mateta? That's a downgrade in my opinion. Voltmada looks like he's going to go to Bayern Munich. How are we, sir? Hey, Craig, hope you're well. Newcastle were already looking for a striker before we went in for Isak. So, hang on. There we go. Sorry, mate. I just can't read all this message for some reason. So, when they get a striker, they could hold on to Isak. So, Newcastle need two. You're right, mate. The plan this season for them was to replace Callum Wilson, and that would be, I guess, the Johan Visa signing. But the likes of a Nicholas Jackson or somebody would be the one we need to happen. But yeah, you're right. Going into the summer, they knew Callum Wilson wasn't going to be signing on again, so they always needed to get one in at least. Gordon, Gay, Ederson, job done. You really think Newcastle are going to want us to start talking about Anthony Gordon next after the whole situation with Isak? Tough one. Gay, yeah, absolutely. Ederson, I'd be more than happy with as well, Tony. I really do like Ederson. I've been a fan of his for a while. Craig, how many players can Arna trust in this team? I don't know. A lot. I mean, there's a lot of good character in that team. A lot of international captains in that team. So I would say quite a few, to be honest. I'm certainly not trying to say this is not a great squad. It is, but we need a little bit more. Craig, you'll get a kick out of this one. Go sign Pulisic. A couple of years ago, and I loved Christian Pulisic, and he's done well over at Milan, but yeah, I think the ship has sailed on that one. So this may, again, I don't read super chats out the second they come in, dude. You're gonna have to bear with me a little bit because sometimes I have to go through the non-super chats. I have to read out some news, and I am playing catch up on super chats. I will always get to them, but sometimes it takes me a while to get through them, and I'm gonna need you to be a little bit more patient with me on occasion. I've done that one. This one. Based on VVD's comments, there has to be encouragement internally that reinforcements are incoming. Wouldn't be a Liverpool summer without anxiety. Yeah, that's fair. Did you see the image? I posted it in our WhatsApp of VVD, the little look on Virgil's face when Arna is shaking hands with Mark A. I thought that was priceless. Whoever took that picture, absolute belter of a picture. And yeah, do you know what I found interesting, Maxwell? When Virgil spoke yesterday and he said we need an attacking reinforcement, I was waiting for him to say, and a defensive one, but maybe because that's his position, I don't know if he wanted to talk about needing a defensive reinforcement, but I did find that funny yesterday that he only spoke about the attacking one that we need to bring in. If Isak is going to drag more, I'd wait until next season to go for him. Buy Rodrigo now. He's the perfect future replacement for Mo and deprive City. See, I wouldn't mind that at all, Cal, because what that would also do, it would see how Ugo Ekitike gets on. And if Ugo Ekitike turns out to be, as Chris Bascom said, maybe a stylistic equivalent of Isak, that might remove the necessity to buy him at all. So it gives you that year as well to see how Hugo Ekitike gets on, as well as having somebody in like Rodrigo. So look, I love Isak, don't get me wrong. Certainly the idea of Ekitike maybe drifting off the left and Isak through the centre was great, but I just wonder at what point we have to start realistically weighing up plan B. Dazer said, Craig, love the show. Could we not just forget Isak and use the money to try tempt Julian Alvarez? Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to, but I guess if a player doesn't want to move back to the UK and it isn't a money thing or anything like that, there's probably not much we can do about it. And I don't know if this has changed a bit, but there's been a bit of chatter that perhaps he's going to end up at Barcelona in a year's time. Now, look, I know maybe that doesn't happen, but there must be a reason why we haven't even really publicly or behind the scenes seen much about Julian Alvarez, because he'd be a great addition. Chiesa staying, but it's funny because when asked before the Charity Shield about Salah's backup, Arna kept mentioning Frimpong, even though the reporter asked about Chiesa. The whole Chiesa situation, who was it that asked this one? Azaz, excuse me if I've mispronounced your name, sir. Yeah, the whole Chiesa situation feels a bit weird. Like, it always felt like who signed him and why, because Arna doesn't seem to want to use him as an option, and even didn't go on the pre-season tour. The whole thing has felt a little bit unusual from day one. Ryan Gravenberch is the most important player at this point in time. While he's not there, it falls away. Still think a midfielder is necessary. Definitely agree with you, Stevie boy. Ryan Gravenberch and that team yesterday would have made a very big difference. I agree. And it was unfortunate, obviously, his missus had the baby. And yet we've been a bit unfortunate as well with the Bradley injury and the Gomez injury. But I guess these are things that might prop up or pop up throughout the season as well. Gone very quiet on Fofana. Thoughts? Much like yourself, Aaron, I've been wondering why it's gone very quiet on Fofana. I haven't really seen anything since Everton declared their interest in him. The last thing I'd seen, Everton had made a play. There were some reports that he wanted Champions League football, but I've not really seen anything about his name since then. Craig Forgy, how are we, dude? Says, no need to panic. Isak will be signed and we will get Gay and Leone. Oh, mate, both of them? Oh, dude, if you probably... sorry. There's no way we'd be left short. Hughes and Edwards are not daft enough to move on players without having plans, solid plans. So, just for an argument, Craig, or for a debate, what's the waiting around for Gay and Leone? What's the benefit of waiting around? If it's to save 5 million quid on Mark Gay, like I said, having him integrated into the team and ready to go, surely worth 5 million quid. So I don't understand there, once we've sold Kwanzaa, what we're hanging around for. If we've already freed up the place in the squad, we might as well get a player in as quickly as we can. This one for Owen. Thank you, Owen. Said, don't know how anybody can watch our disaster of a defence and say Isak should be our priority. Liverpool cannot defend, sign Gay and maybe somebody else. Well, certainly, Owen, I can only speak for our community, but every time we ask the question of what the priority is and we give the option of centre forward and centre back, I promise you, dude, over 80% every time say centre back's the priority. So I don't know, maybe online or fans on X or whatever, a little bit different, but when we chat on here, mate, it's definitely centre back that's the priority for most of us in the chat. David, how are we? David Sweet, thank you, sir. Hi, Craig. I watched your vid addressing Newcastle and their fans. Made me proud to be a part of this community. Thank you. I have to say, some of the feedback on that was I've been really happy, because I felt it needed to be said. And like, I like the Geordies, like I keep saying, but some of the stuff, man, I've seen labelled at our club, it's been petty and silly. And I felt like I just had enough that day and needed to say something. Maybe I've matured a little bit, because in years gone by, I would have maybe thrown in a few more expletives in there. But I felt like it needed to be said. And thank you for being part of our community as well, man. Appreciate having people like you here. A. Barker said, does Isak, Gay and Leone equal to 10 out of 10 window? Oh, God, yeah. It does. 100%. No argument. Um, you get those in, and this is the best transfer window in the history of football, in my opinion. And that's how close we are here to immortality in my mind. You know, we are those players that you've mentioned, mate, or similar, away from this being the greatest transfer window I can remember and live in memory of any football club. Harry said, I think your saving grace this season might be that Arsenal and City don't look great either, so them being weak might help you. Um, Maybe, but I guess we can't um, we can't bank on others being all over the shop, if you get me. We need to be the best version of ourselves that we can be, and hope that regardless of what others do, even if they're at their best, that we're just better. Where were we? This one, Mohammed. How are we, sir? I think if we land Leone Gay, we still have to do. Excuse me. We still have Rio, and don't forget, Grav wasn't even playing. Newcastle asking for an offer opens a door. Elliot plus cash done. Look, I wouldn't disagree with much that you said there, mate. It's been a bit weird. The mixed messaging from Newcastle has been a bit weird. 1 minute they don't want an offer, then the next minute they're waiting for an offer. I don't really know how to get a read on that situation from their perspective. But one thing I do feel comfortable with is I don't see Liverpool paying the £150 million. I just don't know. I don't know how that number came into the public fold, because it's not a number that anybody from Liverpool's side has ever really been talking about. Right, so this coming in from Gazzetta Italia about Chiesa. It said, in recent days, Federico Chiesa has had a direct conversation with Arne Slot while his agent, Fali Ramadani, has spoken to Liverpool's hierarchy. The response from both was unequivocal. Federico is needed at the club because recent deals have reduced the number of wingers in the squad. But that could very well have taken place, and that could be what was said, but that's very much at odds with the treatment that Chiesa's had. So if it was unequivocally that we need wingers and needs to be kept around, why hasn't he been getting chances? Why haven't we seen him in pre-season? Why wasn't he on the pitch yesterday? It just, none of that makes any sense to me. If we don't get Isak, who would you go for? At this point, Rodrigo? Yeah, but it's risky at that point. Honest opinion is ignore the haters in the chat, ban them without reading it out, but let's revisit the Alvarez chapter. So sometimes I accidentally read them out. Sometimes I even don't know until I'm halfway through a sentence if it's going to be a shitty one or not. I wish I had a better pattern, but honestly, I look across and whatever catches my eye, that's the comment I'm reading out. I don't proofread, which maybe I should. Stephen Palmer, thank you. Loving the show. My wife said I'm more interested in you than her. Wise lady. I was going to say, but I don't have boobs. But then again, that's kind of misinformation as well. Look, man, I'm really grateful. I'm grateful to your wife as well for letting you spend the time with us. But I'm definitely very grateful that you're here, Stephen. And I don't know what my wife makes of this side of things, but she knows how happy speaking with all of you makes me as well. And I'm always grateful when partners let you guys watch, and because I must be that voice that a lot of them are fed up hearing. So I do appreciate the understanding, and thank you, man. Appreciate that. And again, so generous, Stephen. Thank you. I never feel like thank you was enough. You know that that's a lot of money, mate. So I really appreciate you. Thank you. Let's buy Savinho. Can't stand Gakpo on the wing. So it's a good conversation around Gakpo, actually. How are we feeling? Because we were talking about this in our Discord group earlier. I do really like and rate Cody, but sometimes I think he's a bit limited in the way he can play the wide left position. He's not as limited in that he can play centrally and he can play in a whole host of positions. But is he explosive enough and versatile enough to cover every way we need the wide position to be played? You know, when we had the difference of him and Luis Diaz, I felt like we were covered whether it was one or the other. There was always a difference. There was like, does Gakpo have the same work rate to get back and defend maybe as Diaz has? Gakpo, I would say, would be a better finisher than Luis Diaz, but I thought between the two of them, he had a really lovely balance. And Rio's going to be a star, but the problem I have with Rio is whether the manager really thinks he's a here and now player, or we're going to have to wait another year, not block the pathway, and figure it out between now and then. Personally, I think he's too predictable, said Tyler. Gumi said, I like Gakpo, but feel he needs more competition. Would like somebody faster that can take on defenders to be brought in to compete. Shane said, Craigie, buzzing like me for Friday. Oh, yes, Shane. Yes. It's felt like a really long summer, mate. And it's like we've gotten loads of new toys, but we haven't been able to play with them, or we've had limited time to play with them. And now on Friday, it all comes to party time. But it's going to be weird as well. We've got about 10 days then between the time that we play Bournemouth and Newcastle, which is the Monday night. So in one way, I'm thinking, well, that's going to give Ireland loads of time to prepare for, let's be honest, what's going to be a fucking tasty game up at St. James's Park. That is going to be... It's going to be epic, that game. I can only imagine the atmosphere inside St. James's Park. Both sets of players really want to go out and prove something. So we have plenty of time to be ready for it. 10 days in between. Loads of time on the pitch for the manager to prepare for it. And psychologically, yeah, the boys best be ready because St. James's Park is going to be hostile that night. Aaron said, surprised we haven't had a look at Stiller. So somebody said this to me before, mate, and again, my own stupidity on this one probably doesn't help. Didn't he have an injury or something at the end of last season, and that maybe has curtailed moves this summer or something? If I'm wrong on that, apologies. I had it in my head that somebody said to me that he had a knee injury or something last season or at the end of the season. And look, you're looking at him and you're thinking, what's the asking price there? 40, something like that. Certainly feels like a player that's playing in a good enough league that is very good in the position, that is attainable financially, and that probably wouldn't have a ridiculous wage. So certainly a good shout. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was said that Newcastle would do something in honour of Diogo, as we did something similar for one of their players. So I have a vague recollection of that as well, Grim Reaper. I'm going to have to look back and research it a bit more, but I do think there was something mentioned about it. I think you're on the right track there, I think. Airwolf said, thanks, Craig. Love the chat. Isak hopefully will be signed. Then Mark A will follow. Do you think we need Barcola? Look, I think we need another forward. I want it to be Isak, and I hope it's Isak. But that situation at the moment is somewhat out of our hands as we wait for Newcastle to get a player. I want it to be Isak. At this point, Isak is definitely the number one for me. Barcola, I'm not convinced on Barcola. I'm not. Obviously, a lot of attributes there to work with, but from what is granted a limited understanding or a limited knowledge of Bradley Barcola's games, when I watch him, I seem to feel frustrated that he needs 4 chances to score. He certainly gets into a lot of positions and creates a lot of these chances, and he's a real talent, but maybe I'm being harsh, and maybe Arna could tie it all together, and he could find that consistency with a bit more experience. Trick said, so what's your feeling on will Isak join or not? Still feel yeah. I do. I still think if you gave me the 50 quid now and said, Craig, will Isak sign or not? I'd still say yeah. He probably will. But it is all contingent on Newcastle getting themselves a player. I think we've gone through all that. So someone said a couple of days ago, you said you were 99.9 to infinity we get Isak. And nothing's changed. Like, I'm absolutely happy to be held accountable for what I said, but please give context fully of what I said. Anybody that watches this channel will know 100% that yes, I said I'm 99.9% we sign Isak if Newcastle get a player. I've always said the whole thing is contingent on Newcastle getting a player. Don't put words in my mouth that aren't there, because I'm happy to be held to account for what I've said, but I want the full context of what I've said. And what I said is that I'm 99.9% sure we sign Isak, but that's contingent on Newcastle getting a player. So, again, if you want to talk about what I've said, please get it right. Chris, how are we, sir? I think Liverpool are being too respectful, especially when other fans and reporters talk crap about us. We should just go and bid 130 for Isak. Well, I'd love us to do that, yeah. You know, there's been stuff in the last few days that the Newcastle are waiting, Newcastle are expecting a bid, Newcastle, then yeah, just put it in. And then let's see, you know, because I got massive disrespect, Chris, when this 110 to 120 million pound offer was talked about as derisory. Like, let's just sit on this for a second. How is 110 to 120 million pound offer derisory? It's a potential record fee. They're going on about it like we offered them 70. It's mad. Like, we offered them a shit ton of money, and it was the reaction to that offer that set Liverpool back. So let me read it out a little bit, because there was a couple of things today on that. One sec, let me go back and read this out. So, Ben Jacobs said, regarding Liverpool's first bid for Isak, Newcastle called up Liverpool and said we should have a conversation, right? So this is what the journalists are writing. Newcastle called up Liverpool and said we should have a conversation because they realised that Isak was trying to force his way out. And that's why Liverpool were surprised when the bid was so emphatically rejected at 110 million. Isak will not engage with Newcastle over a new contract until Liverpool tell him directly a deal isn't going to happen. So Newcastle asked us to get on the phone and talk about Isak, because they understood Isak was looking to force his way out. So Liverpool engaged, made an offer, which of course would have been a kicking off point. Nobody ever thinks your first offer is getting agreed and that's it. But the emphatic nature of that rebuttal and the belittling in the media of that offer, I think has maybe made Liverpool just pause a bit, because I think we've acted fairly and well in this situation. And if you even look at Bayern Munich, or you know, the way we spoke with Diaz, Bayern Munich, Max Erbel said Liverpool were a joy to deal with. So I really do feel like we've been done dirty somewhat there, yeah. This one from Denny said VVD pick reminiscent of Firmino's face, Salah Mane. It was a very telling picture. The one for Virgil van Dijk, as you seen Arne Slot and Mark A shaking hands. Harry, I'm autistic, work in hospitality, and have been bullied. Bullies harm society and deserve what they get. Having struggled with mental health, I really value Craig for respecting everyone. No matter who they support, we need more people like him. Look, I'm sorry to hear that you've gone through that. I also get really angry when people tell me to just ignore, because, like I said, Harry, for me, the standard shouldn't be that we have to ignore arseholes. The standard should be they should be called out, and they should know better and treat people better and be better. Because we were all taught right and wrong growing up. But sometimes it feels like that escapes when people go online and there's no common decency involved. And I'm really friendly and welcoming on here. I'll chat to anybody about anything for as long as they need, as long as they're kind and respectful. It winds me up because I know some of the vitriolic shit that comes my way. I know the threats I've received. I know things, the doxing and stuff that's happened to me. And yeah, some days I do bite on shit that I shouldn't, but I am human and I do try. And like yourself, mate, I'm autistic, and I always try to say you can't have the Craig, the happy, without the other side of it, because that range of emotion is who I am, mate. But I'm really sorry to hear about the bullying stuff as well. It's never nice to hear that happen to anybody, mate. Gary, poll please, who scores the most for us this season? Yeah, sounds like a good one, mate. Let's go with that. Right, give us some options on that poll. Good poll. So, who scores the most? All right, who scores the most in all comps? Right, so obviously Mo gonna have to be there. Salah be top of that list. Salah, Ekatike. Who else do we need? I suppose you got to put Gakpo in there, don't we? Right, I've got one more spot, lads. I've one more space. So who are we going for? So we've got Salah, Ekatike, Gakpo. I need one more. Can't put Isak in yet. Wirtz. Endo. We'll go with Wirtz. Just because I think it's the most realistic one. If Isak comes in, I promise you we'll redo the poll. Deal, right? If Isak comes in, we'll definitely redo the poll. Joe Gomez. Imagine we're sitting here in May, Joe Gomez with 19 league goals or something like that. God, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? Lads, the celebrations and the relief when Joe gets that goal, it's going to be epic. I can't wait for it. Core Blimey said, hey Craig, took a leaf out of Chelsea's book. Their squad depth is at least 3 or 4 in every position. It is. I mean, look, having so many options also does come with its own difficulties. Keeping everybody happy, rotation and stuff. So somewhere in the middle, I guess, is probably right. But they certainly have had a very unique way of going about their transfer business, haven't they? Even now, looking at Javi Simons coming in, and it's what are they up to? 50 now? 49, 50 transfers in the last 4 seasons or something like that. After Jarrell Hato, it's nuts. One sec. Salah had a bad pre-season, but your money on him scoring on Friday. Look, I've certainly no qualms about thinking Salah's going to bag a load of goals this season. And I can't really see past him for top scorer just yet. So if Isak comes in, I'd probably be 50-50 at that point who I think will be the top scorer. But right now, I'd still be leaning with Mo. Animal Farm Rescue said Rafael, I think, would be a good show. I just don't think he has the work ethic defensively that Arna would be happy with. And he's brilliant. He's strong, he's direct, he's pacey, knows where the goal is, but he's also inconsistent. And certainly I don't think we'd be able to get the defensive side out of him enough. But look, we've seen when he played against Milan as well. He's a really good player. I think we will all be relieved to see 2 centre-backs, said Paul Beer. I mean, I'll start with one, mate. I'd be relieved to have 1. 2 would be great, but yeah, 1 would do. What about Stefan Bajcetic as backup? So it's been a difficult one to answer that, Ty, because obviously we haven't seen Stefan or really heard much about his situation. The last I'd seen anything was when he had the operation at the end of the season. There was some talk of potential loans and stuff, but Um, yeah, I'd like to hear Arna talk about it and talk about who those options are and if Stefan may be one of them, because I think we can safely say that having had no pre-season, he's probably not going to be in the manager's immediate thoughts now going into the season. Aaron said, feel things usually are more settled by now. Am I wrong? Well, hard to say, mate, because last year we did nothing in the window, so there was nothing really to settle. It was, we are what we are, we have what we have going into the games. I think also because we had such a good start to the window and got out of the blocks early and got loads of great business done, I think maybe we felt then, yes, there was going to be a time where there was some sales, but now I'm at a point where I'm thinking, well, there's more sales than people being brought in, and I feel like we're at the moment a bit short as we start the season on Friday. Space Cowboy said, in all fairness, Slot done that last season with Trent and Kwanzaa, took them off for underperformance. Once Slot has his new men, it'll be the same. So, but we don't have anybody to take off at the minute. Kwanzaa's gone, and I agree with you. I said this all the way through last season. It just didn't feel like Arna was ready or trusted Jarell Kwanzaa. But I also don't think we've replaced Joel Matip before that. Craig, do we need another defensive midfielder? I wouldn't say no to one, but I wouldn't be upset if we end the window without one. So when I think about midfield, the way my mind thinks is we've got Gravenberch, and then ahead of him, we've probably got Wirtz, Jones, Soboslai as options. I think of Maka somewhere between both. Can do the 6, can be a 10, but I think of him more as an 8. So I think he can play. Like, if Maka was fit yesterday and had a full preseason and Ryan wasn't around, I think we'd have been fine if it was Maka, Soboslai, and Wirtz ahead. I think just Jones was too much of a change for me. And Leone too, yeah, absolutely. Leone's been brilliant in pre-season, really impressed, and that high opinion of him that I've had is there for a while. And the only thing I'd say about Trey Leone is, and I think you'd all agree, he probably needs to put on 10 kilo of muscle, which I'm sure he will over the next year or two. But we'll love him as a player, absolutely wonderful. Would like to have seen Chiesa get game time yesterday. Yeah, I mean, Chris, there's been many times over the past year I've said the same, and we've all said the same. Having him sitting there on the bench, 7 million quid a year, not getting game time just feels weird, because he's not going to get better if he doesn't get game time. He's not going to get into a rhythm. He's not going to be sharp without these competitive minutes. So, by just ignoring him, it doesn't cure anything. It doesn't give us an option. It doesn't give the manager a credible option to bring off the bench because he's not match fit. Mark said, gonna sell Elliot, Doak and Chiesa. We need to retain our net spend champion title. FSG made us think they changed. Still looking to sell to buy. Look, I am open to every eventuality, Mark, between now and the end of the window. I'm open to the idea that maybe I will feel frustrated, like you've said, and net spend is somewhat important, definitely, but mainly for me this summer, I was hoping to just finish the window and think we're good. We've improved where we've needed to, and we don't feel like we have a huge deficiency in any area going into the season. That's how I wanted to judge the window. And so far, if the window closed tomorrow, I don't think we've addressed everything that we needed to. I think there's two big glaring spots, and I would like 3 players, whether it's 2 attackers, 1 centre back, 2 centre backs, 1 attacker. I think 3 is the number for me. And if that doesn't happen, including the sales that you've spoken about, then again, it feels like we'll have undermined ourselves in the window. Stevie Boy, say Gakpo's a one-trick pony, cuts inside and slows down the transition. So it can slow down the transition, and I've complained about that myself. It also, I guess, gives an option of an overlapping run on the outside to take a defender with him if he cuts in. But I do agree with you that more often than not, that is what he does. It can be effective, and we've seen him do that and rifle one into the top corner on a few occasions, but good to give a defender something to think about as well, and have a run at him and try to take him on the outside. We definitely need more players to have a squad for all competitions. Yeah, and I keep coming back to the conversations that we were having at the end of the season, that was the plan for the window. Arne said it himself in many press conferences. The aim here is to build a squad that we feel can go to compete to win every trophy. And to do that, not only do you need to have the individual quality for the starting 11, but you need to know that when you need to make 4 changes, the drop off in performance is not going to be Plymouth Argyle-esque when we played them. Go into the season playing Gakpo down left every game, just not good enough. I agree. That's why I was hoping we'd see more of Rio yesterday. No, like whether we think Cody Gakpo's good enough or not, whether we think Mo's good enough or not, having no competition in those positions is just not a good thing, full stop. Because, you need to feel challenged. You need to feel in your job that if you don't perform, somebody else is coming in to do it. And if there's nobody to come in to do it, it's easy to kind of get comfortable. If Liverpool doesn't get Alexander Isak, who's taking their number 9? Nobody at the minute, I would say. Does somebody else want to change a number? Perhaps. We didn't give it to Ugo Ekitike, so not sure. But it'd be weird going into the season with the number 9 free and not given to anybody, wouldn't it? And also feel really bad for anybody, let's say, if it was a player who they've already bought a shirt for and he changed his number again last minute. So, yeah, I mean, you'd have to believe that the plan was, knowing Darwin was going to be sold, that it was there for Isak. So, I need a quick favour. We are, what are we? 10 subscribers away from the next 1,000. So, if you haven't subscribed tonight, please do. And also, if you haven't dropped a like on the stream, we're 98 likes away from 1,000. So, really do appreciate your support. If you can help us out on that one, just 10 little subscribers to go. We do have a poll running at the minute where we asked you to tell us who scores the most in all competitions for Liverpool this season. About 10 minutes ago on tonight's stream, I'm going to run through some of the news I haven't had a chance to do for you yet. Where is it? This one. Chris Bascom said Ekitike's promising debut suggests that not all road must lead directly to Isak when it comes to Liverpool finding goal-scoring solutions when beginning their title defence this season. The officials for our first game of the season against Bournemouth have been named as well. Referee Anthony Taylor. Assistants Gary Bessick and Craig Taylor. Fourth official Farah Halam. VAR Michael Oliver. Assistant VAR Thomas Bramall. Crystal Palace chairman Steve Parish, speaking about Mark Gay, said, "Of course, for players of that calibre to leave on a free, it is a problem. It needs a new contract or a conclusion of some kind." So, looks like he's certainly open to those ideas of him being sold. Alex Crook of TalkSport said, "Sources are telling me that the initial bid of £110 million that went in for Isak wasn't too far away from what Liverpool think Newcastle would accept." That's interesting, right? So Liverpool feel that if Newcastle get to the point, at least according to Alex Crook, that they admit they have to or will sell Isak, he feels that Liverpool think 110 million isn't too far away from what will get it done. Dave O.C. Coppa said Liverpool expecting to hold talks this week for Mark Gay. Gay is a key defensive target for Liverpool with much of the groundwork for potential transfer already in place. Gay only wants to join Liverpool should he leave Crystal Palace. Flynn Bob 95, welcome to Anfield Agenda FC, my friend. Fabrizio Romano said, as long as the deal for Isak remains alive, as they wait for Newcastle's decision, the Reds wait and prepare their strategy as the Swedish striker also insists on playing at Anfield this upcoming season. But Newcastle have the ball in their court. This is why Liverpool discussed internally about alternatives, and Barcola is considered as one of the best players in the world by Liverpool. Also, from Romano, the new deal proposal is ready, and Paris Saint-Germain expect Barcola to stay unless the player makes a different decision. PSG are expecting Bradley Barcola to sign a huge new contract after the window closes. Everybody at the club wants him to stay and insists he's not for sale. So that kind of feels like we're wasting time with him as an option then. Also, Fabrizio Romano said Liverpool are really considering internally to sign Giovanni Leone. My prediction, Liverpool sign him. Florian Plettenberg then responded to that tweet with a googly eyes emoji and a tick. What else was there? Costas. This piece here said Costas wasn't included in the Liverpool squad that faced Palace. Went on to say the fullback is edging closer to the Liverpool exit. Nottingham Forest have shown interest and Leeds United have been linked. Caught Offside have said Liverpool continue to closely track Rodrigo's situation and view the winger as a prime alternative should the pursuit of Isak fail. But we might have to get our finger out on that one as well, because Manchester City are now looking at Rodrigo as they're looking to sell Savinho to Spurs. So they could be moving there for Rodrigo as well. Surely that would be a difficult one though, right? For Rodrigo there. Leave Real Madrid to go to a legend of their arch rivals. That wouldn't... I don't think Madrid fans would like that one if he left and he ended up playing for Pep Guardiola. Just maybe I'm wrong on my judgment on that one. Mr. Greek Scouser if he goes. Are we not getting Isak now? So again, nothing has changed there, Alfie. I can't reiterate this enough, but until Newcastle start to find targets, they're not going to sell Isak. So we got to wait and see if they can get a target in, and that's the only thing that's stopping this deal happening. So, but I can't sit here and tell you that that's going to happen because I'm not in control of what Newcastle do. But it was never, ever going to happen until they sold, or until they, brought in a replacement. $180 million plus add-ons, Doak on loan, options to buy. Don't think Newcastle need wide players, to be fair. You know, they've got Harvey Barnes, they've got Alanga, they've got Anthony Gordon. So I don't think Ben Doak would be one that would fulfill what they need. Savinho is a good player. Why is Man City selling? I really don't know, mate. Pang? I don't know, dude. It kind of took me by surprise a little bit when I seen it last night as well. Yeah, it definitely feels like that didn't work out very quickly. John, how are we, sir? Said Gay has to be signed at ASAP. Virgil's excuse in an aftermatch interview that the disrespectful way the Palace fans ruined the minute silence badly affected the mentality of the team's game. So, look, I do think we have to be somewhat understanding of the toll that the Diogo situation has taken on the lads, and you know, every time they've kicked a game of football since then, Diogo has been at the forefront of people's considerations, whether it be the pre-season games, because you're going to a new stadium in a new country and everybody wants to be respectful each time and show their respects to Diogo and Andre. Then you go to Wembley, of course, for the Community Shield, and there's another gesture with great intent for Diogo and Andre. And I don't know how much it wears on the players, because I'm sure it must be difficult. And like I said yesterday, these guys are also grieving in the public eye for a colleague and a friend. And some of them maybe can deal with it better than others. People have spoken about the fact that it looks like it weighs heavy on Mo, and maybe it does. You know, these guys are human beings and they've had to do their grieving in the public eye. Feels like the new players had more hunger. Well, you probably are eager to do well as well, mate. There's probably something to that. It's yeah. Look, there was some promising stuff yesterday, especially some of the movement through the lines between Wirtz, let's say, or the connection between Wirtz and Ekitike. There's definitely really promising signs that yesterday. Just not enough of it. Because Cherky is better than who? If you think Cherky's better than Wirtz, and I'm not sure if that's the question, David, because I'm kind of just seeing your comment in the chat, so I don't know if that's what you're talking about. But if that is it, no, he isn't. He's not even in the same ballpark. But like I said, mate, I'm jumping into the conversation, so maybe I've misinterpreted what you're writing. Right, so we asked who scores the most in all comps. Still have a few votes left to go if you want to vote. Salah, Ekitike, Gakpo or Wirtz. And also we're just one. Oh, we've done it now. Do keep hitting that subscribe button though. Thank you so much, guys. We are kicking on towards the next target, obviously 350, and then, you know, we'll see where the future takes us. Why aren't we looking at Collins, said Jason Curry. I think it would be a difficult deal to get done. You know, he's just been made Brentford captain. Brentford have gone through an awful lot of change this summer. Thomas Frank gone, Keith Andrews coming in. Obviously, Kelleher came in as the keeper. They've lost one striker in Mboma, or a wide player in Mboma, probably going to lose Visa. Lost Norgard. I can't see them, because then they're starting to have to consider, are we preparing for a relegation battle? So I'd love Nathan Collins, definitely good enough, but I'd just say it's a really tough one to get done now. Our penalty takers are not convincing. I wasn't convinced yesterday either, mate. I can't lie. Salah missing 2 in a row now. Same penalty missed twice, same direction. And, you know, he has a history of missing a few as well. I think it's a genuine conversation around who takes penalties now. I think it should be at least discussed internally. The missed penalty that shocked me the most yesterday was McAllister, because he's usually ice cold in these situations. Oh, you were talking about Savinho, David. Sorry, Savinho. Maybe, yeah. Maybe Cherky be better than Savinho. I haven't really watched enough of both together, mate, to know, but I can certainly see where you go with that one, mate, yeah. Right, so just about to finish up, and I'm going to go record the late night news update. But before we did, we asked you guys who scores the most in all competitions, and so far, with the options of Salah, Ekitike, Gakpo and Wirtz, 60% of you guys reckon Mohamed Salah will be Liverpool's top scorer. I'll really be interested to run this poll again if we do sign Isak. It'd be interesting to see if people's thoughts maybe change there. Just to clarify as well, I'm sure you guys know this, but Crystal Palace lost their appeal at the Court of Arbitration for Sport, meaning they will play in the Conference League this season, and Forest will go into the Europa League. I have to say, I do have a lot of sympathy for Palace fans on this one. I wanted them to get that place. I felt they deserved it. Obviously, you know, it looks like the rules were correct, and it's a bad situation for Palace's fans because they deserved it. They were brilliant in the FA Cup, and definitely do feel for those Palace fans with that decision. Right. See you guys tomorrow. Again, thank you for coming in tonight. Lovely stream. Had lots of fun. Appreciate you, and we'll talk tomorrow. Take care, guys. Hopefully we've got some positive news tomorrow.